Chapter 2. Diagnose before you prescribe. Imagine you walk into a doctor's office. You sit down, and before you can say a word, the doctor hands you a prescription for stronger glasses. You stare at him. "But doctor," you say, "my eyes are fine. My knee hurts." In the medical world, that is called malpractice. A doctor who prescribes medication without diagnosing the patient is dangerous. They lose their license. They get sued. But in the business world, we do this every single day, and we call it pitching. We walk into a meeting with a client, and before we know what is actually broken in their business, we start prescribing our solution. We open the slide deck, we list our features, we talk about our awards, our history, and our capabilities. We are prescribing glasses to a patient with a broken knee. This is why most sales pitches fail. This is why internal initiatives get rejected. It isn't because your solution is bad, it is because you are answering questions that the other person hasn't asked yet. Communication creates results, but only when it hits a target. If you are shooting in the dark, you are just making noise. In Chapter 1, we talked about removing the fluff. Now, we are going to talk about filling that silence with the right questions. This chapter is about shifting your identity. You are no longer a salesperson, a manager, or a marketer. You are a diagnostician. Your goal is not to sell. Your goal is to understand the gap between where they are and where they need to be. Only when you understand that gap do you earn the right to offer a solution. This is how you win clients. You stop trying to be interesting and you start being interested. The psychology of the feature dump. Why do we rush to the solution? It comes back to insecurity. When we are in a high-stakes conversation, silence feels dangerous. We feel pressure to prove our value immediately. So we default to what we know, our product, our team, or our skills. We think, if I just show them everything this software can do, they will see something they like. This is the feature dump. It is the enemy of influence. When you list features without context, you are forcing the client to do the mental work. You are asking them to connect the dots between your feature and their problem. Most of the time, they won't bother. They will just tune out. Let's look at a real business example. There was a software consultant struggling to close deals for a high-end project management tool. His strategy was standard. He would get on a Zoom call, share his screen, and spend 45 minutes clicking through every tab, dashboard, and reporting feature. He was showing them everything, and his closing rate was abysmal. He decided to run an experiment. He stopped showing the product. For the first 20 minutes of the call, he kept the screen black. He didn't talk about the software. Instead, he asked about the client's biggest operational headache. He asked, "Walk me through what happens when a project misses a deadline. Who gets the blame? How much does it cost you?" He dug deep. He found that the real pain wasn't project tracking. The real pain was that the VP of operations was spending her weekends manually fixing spreadsheets and was terrified of burning out. Once he understood that, he didn't show 50 features. He showed one. He showed the automated reporting feature. He said, "This feature will give you your weekends back." His close rate doubled. Why? Because the client started selling themselves. Once they felt understood, once they felt the consultant had diagnosed the real injury, the prescription became obvious. You guide the conversation by uncovering the pain, not by masking it with a pitch. The discovery framework: situation, pain, impact. How do you execute this? You can't just ask, "What's your problem?" That's lazy. You need a structure. I call this the discovery framework. It moves through 3 distinct levels: situation, pain, impact. Level 1, the situation, the facts. These are the basics. You are establishing the baseline. Walk me through your current process. What tools are you currently using? How is the team structured right now? Most people stop here. They get the facts and jump to the pitch. That is a mistake. Facts don't drive decisions. Emotions drive decisions. You need to go deeper. Level 2, the pain, the friction. Now you look for the break. Where is the process slowing down? What part of this workflow frustrates the team the most? You mentioned you use tool X. What is the one thing you wish it did differently? Now you are finding the injury, but you still aren't ready to prescribe. A small injury isn't enough to justify a big purchase or a big change. You need to find the cost of that injury. Level 3, the impact, the cost. This is the money layer. This is where you win the deal. You need to help them quantify what that pain is costing them. If that process is slowing you down by 2 days every week, what does that mean for your quarterly targets? How is this frustration affecting employee retention? If this problem isn't solved in 6 months, what happens? Do you see the difference? Level 1 is data. Level 2 is frustration. Level 3 is business urgency. When you get a client to articulate the impact, you don't have to convince them to buy. They have just convinced themselves that staying the same is too expensive. Communication creates results when you make the problem so clear that the solution becomes the only logical next step. Implementation, the Columbo method. This works for management too. Let's say you are a leader and your team is missing deadlines. The prescription approach is to storm in and say, "We need to work harder. I'm instituting a daily stand-up meeting." You just prescribed a solution without a diagnosis. The team will resent it. The diagnostic approach looks like this. You sit down with the team lead. Situation: we missed the last 2 milestones. Pain: what exactly happened in the 48 hours before the deadline? Walk me through it. Diagnosis: you discover that the team isn't lazy, they're waiting on approval from the legal department, which takes 3 days. Impact: so the legal bottleneck is costing us a week per sprint. Now, as a leader, you don't need to yell at the team. You need to go talk to legal. You diagnosed the root cause. Here is a practical technique you can use today. It's called the Columbo method, named after the TV detective. Columbo was famous for asking just one more thing. He played the role of the curious observer, never the aggressor. In your next meeting, play dumb. Even if you think you know the answer, ask the question. Help me understand. I'm curious, why do you do it that way? Tell me more about that. Let silence do the heavy lifting. When they finish answering, wait 3 seconds. Usually, the real truth comes out in that second pause. This is how you win clients and respect, by proving that you care enough to understand the nuance of their world. The AI advantage in diagnosis. Now, how does AI fit into this? You might think diagnosis is a purely human skill. It requires empathy, right? Yes, but AI makes you faster, not weaker. You can use AI to simulate the diagnosis before you even get on the call. Before a high-stakes meeting, paste the prospect's LinkedIn profile, their company's recent news, and their website copy into your AI tool. Then, use this prompt. Based on this company's recent growth and this person's role, what are the top 3 hidden operational pains they are likely facing right now? What questions should I ask to uncover them? The AI will give you a list of potential fractures. It might tell you, they just merged with a competitor, so they are likely struggling with cultural integration and redundant software. Now, when you walk into the meeting, you have a hypothesis. You aren't starting from zero. You can ask, I noticed the recent merger. How is the team handling the software migration? Suddenly, you look like a mind reader. You didn't just do research, you did diagnostic prep. Use AI to prepare your questions so your brain is free to listen to the answers. Your next step. Here is your closing thought for this chapter. The most persuasive person in the room isn't the one with the smoothest talk track. It is the one who understands the problem better than anyone else. When you can articulate a person's problem better than they can describe it themselves, they automatically credit you with the solution. So, your challenge. In your next conversation, ask 3 diagnostic questions before you make a single statement. What is the situation? Where does it hurt? What is it costing you? Once you have that information, you have the leverage. You have diagnosed the fracture. Now you are ready to set the bone. But knowing the problem is only half the battle. You have to propose the solution in a way that guarantees a yes. You can't just talk about what you will do. You have to talk about what they will get. You mastered the diagnosis? Now you need to sell the cure.